Howdy again everyone, and today I'm checking out my first ever speed booster adapter, the Viltrox EF-EOS M2 0.71 times adapter. A large number of people have requested me to review this, so I'd like to thank Viltrox for sending me a copy for testing, although as usual this is an independent review. It's available now for about $150 or £120 here in the UK, so not too expensive. Most people know what a speed booster is, or focal reducer, but here's a quick explanation anyway, and I'm going to show you some examples while I explain. If you're using one of Canon's EOS M mirrorless cameras, then the Viltrox adapter takes the place of a normal EF to EF-M adapter, as you can see here. Like the normal adapter, it lets you fix EF mount digital SLR lenses onto your mirrorless EF-M camera. But as it's a speed booster with optics inside of it, it projects nearly the whole image circle of a full frame lens into the smaller aps-c sensor of the little Canon EOS M camera, which makes that camera behave more like a full frame camera, giving you wider angles and much more noticeably out-of-focus backgrounds. So, for example, this 85mm lens mounted onto a Canon EOS M camera with the normal adapter behaves like a 136mm lens with a depth of field of about f2.8 on a full frame camera. That's the normal crop factor of 1.6 times for an aps-c sensor. Are you with me? But with the Viltrox adapter instead, now it behaves more like a 97mm lens, much wider angle, with a depth of field of f2, much deeper, very close to what the lens would look like on a full frame camera as it was originally intended. And that's cool. Here are a few further examples for you to look at while I explain. And in those examples, take note of the shutter speeds particularly. I think the coolest thing about this adapter lies in one of its side effects. In magnifying all that light from the full frame image circle onto a smaller sensor, you get a much brighter image. So in terms of how intense the light is that's hitting the image sensor, this f1.8 lens is now more like f1.2. And accordingly, you can access some very fast shutter speeds. As soon as I started testing this speed booster with my f1.8 and f1.4 lenses, I noticed my camera was getting very fast shutter speeds, which is awesome when you're shooting indoors or in darker conditions, or filmmaking. The negative side effect of using a speed booster is that, firstly, they cost some money as they contain optical elements instead of just air. And secondly, as a result of those optics, they tend to have a negative effect on image quality. Your final images may not be quite as sharp as if you had just mounted the lens directly onto a full frame camera. Before I test any further, here's a word on compatibility for you. You won't be able to mount Canon's EF-S lenses onto this adapter, they won't physically fit. You will be able to mount third-party aps-c lenses, like the Sigma 18-35 that you see here, but you'll get strong vignetting. You also won't be able to mount mirrorless camera lenses with this adapter. The Viltrox adapter really is just for using full-frame digital SLR camera lenses on your mirrorless EF-M camera system. Well, let's have a very quick look at the build quality of the adapter itself, and it's simply excellent. It's made of metal, and it fixes your lens onto the camera really securely. Simple. The Viltrox adapter is fully electronic, so autofocus and everything else should work completely as normal. Here's an autofocus test for you. On the left we have a Canon 50mm f1.4 lens with my Canon EOS M3 camera and the official Canon EF to EF-M adapter. On the right we have the same setup but with the Viltrox adapter. And in this footage, you might be able to see that the Viltrox adapter seems to be just a little slower and slightly less confident than the official Canon EF to EF-M adapter, but it does work fine really, apart from that. Now, I want to look at how much using this adapter will affect your final image quality. Now I've tried to think carefully about how to do and present this test for you. Canon do not actually make any high-resolution aps-c and full-frame cameras with the same megapixel resolution, which makes this test tricky. What I do have though is my Canon 6D digital SLR camera with its full-frame 20 megapixel sensor, and my Canon EOS M3 with its smaller aps-c 24 megapixel sensor. So my little mirrorless Canon EOS M3 should be able to resolve a bit more detail than my 6D full-frame camera if you're using a sharp enough lens. What I'm going to do in this test is to show you my test chart from both cameras side to side and at the same magnification. Now that makes it slightly unfair to the lower resolution Canon 6D. But using this adapter will have to mean some kind of penalty in image quality anyway for the aps-c camera, so my feeling is that that balances out somewhat. If the images using the adapter are as good as they are directly from the full frame camera, then they'll be good enough to satisfy me. As you can guess, this isn't really the most scientific of tests. Okay, let's start with a very wide angle 24mm lens, the Samyang 24mm f1.4. I'll stop it down to f2.8 to start with for sharper image quality. On the Canon 6D and the EOS M3 with adapter, both images are really sharp in the middle. However, look into the corners and we start to see problems with the adapter. Even if you stop down to f8, the adapter takes its toll on image quality. So, wide-angle lenses will look good in the middle, but the very edges will struggle. Well, now let's go the other way and try a short telephoto lens, the Canon EF-85mm f1.8 EOS M. At f1.8, the lens looks slightly softer when used through the Viltrox adapter, and over in the corners, we see some evidence of pretty uneven sharpness across the image frame there with the Viltrox adapter. If we stop down to f2.8, then the adapter is still having some issues in the corners, but the middle of the image now looks really sharp. f4, again, looks brilliant in the middle, and the corners are finally coming together through the Viltrox adapter. There's a good improvement at f5.6 and f8, where the image through the Viltrox adapter finally looks good, except for the very edges. Well, I think this is enough to give us an idea of the optical effect the Viltrox adapter has on your images. The middle will generally look fine, but image corners, particularly the very edges, and particularly on wide-angle lenses, will struggle. Overall, well, I think the Viltrox adapter is absolutely brilliant for anyone who wants full-frame style pictures with deep autofocus backgrounds out of their inexpensive EOS M series camera. It's also brilliant for anyone who likes shooting in low light conditions. The extra brightness that the Viltrox adapter can open up for you is really dramatic. And the disadvantage of the adapter is, you guessed it, lower image quality. Basically, you won't want to use this adapter for landscape work or photography where sharpness is critical across the image frame, but casual portrait photographers and a number of video makers might really love it and find it useful and maybe even never take it off their camera.